Number one thing I always say is get familiar with prompt engineering. This is, I feel like, the skill of the century now. They can literally unlock so many different things. It opens door to so many other things. I would say if you just focus on understanding how to prompt correctly, you've done already like a big chunk of the work. Second, I'll say understand the concept of context engineering. I know the term context engineering sounds complicated, but it's technically always think about what the AI needs to know in order to do something.
Welcome to SaaS That App, building B2B web applications, the podcast where we share real-world stories, practical advice, and tech insights for those building or thinking about starting a tech-enabled business. I am your co-host, Aaron Marchbanks.
And I'm Justin Edwards. Each week we bring you the stories, strategies, and insights you need to build your SaaS or tech-enabled business smarter, not harder. Let's dive right in.
Hello all, and welcome back to SaaS That App. I see Justin. I say that with a little surprise because I think he and I both have been basically back to back today. How's that going?
I've been so back to back, Aaron, I can't even remember the last time that we recorded like an hour-long podcast together. Was that 2 calls ago or 1 call ago?
Well, for me, it was 2. I don't know. I can't speak for yours.
It's between you and Nick, who's going to win the most time spent on the phone with me today. I think Nick's at 2.5 hours and you're coming up on 2.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'll have to get it together a little bit. I'll see if I can grab you for an additional time at the end of the day to even the odds.
Please don't.
Also joining us today, we have Richardson Dackam. I'd like to welcome him to the show as an AI engineer. He's been a founder. He's a writer exploring what happens when modern software development kind of meets the rapidly evolving world and wild, wild west of the artificial intelligence landscape. He is the captain of N Shipyard, a venture studio focused on building AI-powered products and helping founders turn ideas into real applications. So along the way, he's worked on production AI systems, writes extensively about AI, startup building, spends a lot of time thinking about how these tools are changing small teams, solo builders, small dev shops, and what they can accomplish. So today we're going to be diving into building with AI, talking about opportunities and pitfalls, AI native startups, how founders can utilize all this incredible technology and all that good fun. So Richardson, welcome to the pod.
Oh, thanks for having me. Always excited to talk about AI.
Good. A lot of people are, but I'm excited to get your take on a lot of this stuff because I know that you've been steeped in it. So we'll get the necessary stuff out of the way first. What pulled you into the direction of technology, and when did AI become the thing that you really wanted to knuckle down on and captured you?
I think the real pull was actually being an entrepreneur, being able to build my own thing and building anything that I wanted. I'm a self-taught developer. I'm also a self-taught AI developer as well. So when I started, I wanted to build my own startup, but I didn't know how to code. So I started talking to different developers, asking them to help me build the thing. And one developer told me, why don't you just build it yourself? Learn how to code and build the thing yourself. And that's pretty much how I got started into web development. Then I learned how to code at the time in college. I ended up working for a law firm and done a lot of different apps and so on. And I've always been good with computers in general, but technically I learned how to code for the web because before I knew how to use things like Visual Basic, a very simple web development application. But in college, I learned to build actual application for the web, and that's when there were a big shift.
Nice. So what was the first big thing that you did build then, utilizing AI? Somebody talked you into it, so you went and did it. What did you do?
So the first time I used AI was about 3 years-ish ago. And I wanted to get familiar with the technology first. So using AI to summarize things for me, to build an application that can think with AI. So I was building really simple things to just play around with it to understand how it works. And I'm always driven by figuring out how it works first before I can actually build more complex project. And technically, I was just playing around, trying to understand how it works, what happened when I send a prompt, how to get it to do specific things that I want, and really pushing the limit of AI to try to understand at what point it just stopped where it cannot do something and try to figure out what I can build on top of it.
So what does your stack look like right now? I mean, what do you leverage for the various aspects of what you do with it?
So right now I'm using a little bit of everything. I tried Gemini, Cloud, OpenAI. It really depends on what I'm doing. So the most recent project that I've been building, for example, Oren LM is an application. If you're familiar with Notebook LM, that allow people to put a prompt, summarize something into a podcast or a video. So what I initially built with Oren LM was to do something like that, where I can put a prompt and then generate podcasts for me. So this one utilizes technology that allows to understand voice, to summarize things as well. I try to look at what the different AI platform offers and utilize the best technology that I can use for the job.
Got you. So when somebody says, I want to build an AI, I want to build an AI startup, what is like the most common misunderstanding you see right away? I usually tell the story, people or clients of ours even will show up and be like, I want to do AI. It's like, well, the fact that you said it that way means you don't really understand what it is you're wanting. So let's back up and find out what it is you think it does and then why it is you think you need it. But what do you run into when people approach you about, I want to get into AI, I want to use AI, I want to build this in AI? What do you see them falling over themselves for?
I always see a little bit of people that underestimate AI and also people that overestimate AI. It always happens where someone thinks that AI is so good today, that it's so autonomous that, for example, it will take someone's job right now. I think there's some limit to that. But people tend to overestimate what AI can actually do. For example, there's this new tool that came around called OpenClaw that can do a lot of things autonomously, but is it real autonomy or is it just using cron jobs? So there's always this thing where people assume that it's so good that you only need to submit a prompt and it will do everything for them. But a lot of AI, especially if you want to use it for businesses and stuff like that, you need to customize it to an extent, like write a system prompt to make it better, figure out what kind of tool need to be automated with a cron job. So you need to think about all of that. And then a lot of time, people assume that if they just connect to OpenAI or cloud, that these tools are going to do everything for them. So they really imagine that being the wrapper and letting the AI do all the job. But this is not really how it works. You really need to put in the work to figure out how to utilize the AI the best you can to do specific things.
So what are some examples that you've seen in your career where someone kind of overestimates what AI is or thinks that it does something that it doesn't actually do?
Oftentimes, for example, people think that AI is so good now that literally if the company add OpenAI to the technology stack, that it will literally take their job and then they will be jobless. Some people genuinely have that fear. A lot of people don't realize that at the point where AI is right now, it has a lot more to do with augmentation, where you can utilize it to do tasks because AI replaces tasks, not jobs, where it stands right now. And a lot of people don't see that.
I like that. That's great. That notion of it replaces tasks, not jobs, things, not people.
And I want to be upfront to the fact that we might get to a point where it's able to replace jobs. It probably can replace a lot of jobs or some type of jobs today. But generally, what AI tends to do is more focusing on task accomplishment. And then so when you're making an agent that's really autonomous to the point where you can replace someone's job, it's essentially someone that has put a lot of work into figuring out exactly what task to replace. But replacing the nature of job itself is a lot more complicated because there's a lot of things that are unsaid. For example, the corporate culture that the AI can understand. And I believe MIT recently did a study where they were actually looking into that. And they wanted to evaluate if AI is actually able to replace someone's job. And then what they realized is that the percentage of job that it can actually replace today is really low because there's all this cultural thing that happen in a company. If your boss tells you, if you don't finish this job by Thursday, you know that you could be in trouble. You know that you might get fired if you don't do the work that you intended to do. Well, AI doesn't really get that, right? So it doesn't really understand the cultural innuendo and all the stuff.
So how does having these tools like the AI coding assistants and the automation platforms and things like that, how do you see that fitting in best today? Obviously there's a lot of different tooling out there, everything from just the LLMs that are out there to actual assistants that are in IDEs and, on and on and on, those that specialize in quality assurance and code review and things like that. I mean, how does somebody kind of wade through this pile of AIs to find the mix that they need to do what it is that they want to do? How do you help coach people to find those?
I really always tell people to start with what you don't know and ask AI to give you some clarity into the things that you don't know. Because through that process, you're likely to have more follow-up questions and get more clarity into what you want to do. So I run this community where I have a lot of people that want to build with AI, and oftentimes they don't even know what they want to build or how to build it. And I always say, well, just go and ask AI how to do that and what to build. Literally ask the question that you have doubt about, just ask them. But just like in a lot of things, people don't actually take action. They keep their question and their fear in their head and they don't really take any action. But I will say the first step is just use AI, ask the question that you need, and the clarity that you want will come out from this series of follow-up.
So what cool stuff are you seeing right now? It's really fun to integrate with, or it's providing big lifts to products and things that you're working on in terms of AI integrations. What's the big leverage items that are fun?
There are so many right now. I feel like there's a new tool almost every single day or week now. I play with XR, which does deep research. I've played a lot with DeepGram. If you want to build an agent, for example, that can listen to a conversation and generate insight or information right away, you can use DeepGram to do something like that. It's also used a lot for people that want to build AI agents that can answer phone calls and, for example, be like an AI bot. OpenClaw is really interesting. I've been really analyzing the architecture. I like how they've really put the work to think about how to utilize skills in order to not only build the personality of the agents, but also how the agent function. So there's this skills inside of Claude called soul. Your goal is just to define what's the soul of the AI agent. I think this is a clever way to use skills for that. I've been using Gemini and OpenAI voice capability, and I keep going back and forth between the two because of cost. And Gemini has a really good quality in terms of voices. I mean, if you've used Notebook LM, any voices that you hear in the videos are from one of the top models. So I've used that in OpenLM. Definitely a lot of tool out there. Like one area that I've been really diving deep into as well is biotech. So using AI agents specifically for bio. So there's an AI agent called Biomni. I believe it's currently free. That might change soon. They're just testing it. But it's like an agent that you can put out there to do some research for you, like an AI scientist. So I'm really exploring all the different applications to really understand the limitation and how I can push AI to do things for me as well.
Real quick, this episode is brought to you by Delta Systems, which is what Aaron and I do when we're not talking through microphones to you, the people of the internet. We've got a really, really great software team here, and we love to work with cool people on cool projects. So if that sounds like you and you've got a problem or you're in some kind of a jam, go to deltasystems.com, grab a time with us. We can beat up on your problem together, and if there's a fit there, amazing, we'll help you out. So deltasystems.com, grab an appointment, and hey, maybe we can work together.
Just from a developer's, a programmer's perspective, do you use different agents or different AIs for the different parts of your process? To, I actually want to generate the code. I want to review the code. I want to quality check the code. I want to publish or push out the code. Do you use different AIs for each of those aspects? And then do you cross-check? I read a lot these days about, if you're going to have one AI write it, have a different one check it, which of course makes total sense. But, which ones play best together and give you the best overlap?
So I use Cursor for coding. And when I use Cursor, generally I've used GPT-5.3 codex for planning for me because I find it's a really good planner. Usually whenever I want to generate a feature that is very visual, I tend to go more toward Cloud Opus because I feel like it's a better designer in that sense. I tend to be more happy with this kind of design. But also design is subjective. Sometimes I use OpenAI and I get much better design in some other aspect. So I really jump between the different models based on what I want to get out of it. But I tend to go more with the smarter model, the model that I consider the smartest at the moment. So right now it's GPT-5.3 codex for me. So I tend to go more with that. In the past, I used to use ChatGPT to do my PRD and plan my development. And I used to use Taskmaster separately. But now Cursor has planning built in. So I don't really feel the need to jump between tools anymore. I just straight up go directly inside of Cursor. Even like more recently, I was using V0 to first do my UI, and then my workflow was to first generate a navigable prototype. And that's a very specific term that I use when I generate it. I say, generate a navigable prototype that is not functional, that doesn't make any requests, because it really allows me to play with a UI interface, really see how it works, where it breaks, and really focus on the design. And this way, the AI doesn't introduce like functionality and breaks, because sometimes you end up spending more time debugging in between. So I separate the way I generate the design and the way I actually implement the functionality after the fact. My main go-to framework for that is Next.js. I'm actually a Ruby on Rails developer that completely switched to writing JavaScript because I felt that using Next.js, I had the front end and the back end on the same environment. It was a lot easier. Also, inside of a project, my AI doesn't have to jump between application back and forth, between my front end and my back end. It can see everything all at once. And Cursor used to have a lot of problem with context. When you had like two very big projects, that was like a really big problem. And also, if you had like a big front end and a big back end, and you needed to put them all together, that it would take more time for your AI to read through it. Now it's a lot better, but that's kind of like what drives me toward doing that.
We have a couple projects in Next.js. It's not without merit. You can have my Ruby when you pry it out of my cold, dead hands. But we have a couple projects in Next.js. Honestly, my experience has been that the AI generation and using like agentic coding has been so much better in JavaScript. I think it's just that there's just so much corpus of terrible JavaScript code that it really understands it very well. And the generated JavaScript tends to be of really high quality. Or maybe it's of lower quality and JavaScript is also just of lower quality. Who knows?
Justin has no personal preference about anything, in case you're wondering.
The reason I gave him my own show is I have no opinions and I don't know very much. So be curious to know a little bit more about your actual kind of workflow for working with agentic coding. So you're working with V0, which is Vercel's doohickey, I'll use for lack of a better word. So how do you get those kind of designs, like your clickable functional prototype, like how do you communicate that back into something that's going to do actual functional code gen? Like what's like a typical tool setup for doing that?
In my PRD, I would usually make sure to always mention to generate all the page path, all the API endpoint. I make it clear that we're going to have like a front end and back end. But when I do generate the front end, I focus on navigable prototype, and I also say not to implement any authentication. I always build for like a user of one. Like no authentication. We're just building the navigable prototype. Sometimes not even a homepage. It's just focusing on the core feature, making sure that the core feature works. And then down the road, I end up adding other tools. So my current workflow for speed, I tend to use AppStash, very cheap. It's an easy way for me to have a small Redis database to store anything that I need to store. And I tend to use Magic Link for authentication, because then I don't have to do the complex authentication setup. I can just like go on Magic Link, create an account, and then add it to my app. And I'm just set up in a couple of minutes. So that's my little hack. I only go to a more relationship-based database down the road if I really need to. For example, Subbase is usually my go-to for that. Because I have so many different projects, I have more than 30 plus projects. So I try to minimize the cost as much as I can and really focus on making sure the feature works with the AI and all that.
So you mentioned working with OpenClaw, and I looked a little bit into that very recently because actually we may have some service offerings or some service needs that are surrounding that. And I also found that notion of them trying to craft it as a living thing. You mentioned it has a soul, it also has heartbeats and the memory and things like that. So I'm curious what your level of experience with OpenClaw is and how you have worked with it by way of some of those pulse controls and lobster tails and things like that they throw in.
So I would say my level of experience with OpenClaw is I'm not an expert by any means. I'm technical enough that I was able to set it up myself, making it work in an environment, just read through the code, through the architecture. I actually built something similar called BeetleBot that is literally inspired by OpenClaw and then ZeroClaw, which is another alternative. So I'm currently using OpenClaw to teach it how to build application for me so I don't have to. But I'm in a very early days of that. So the way I'm configuring it is based on the experience that I've built, understanding how to write skills, how to do prompt engineering, how to do context engineering the right way. So I'm currently setting up my AI with the assumption that it has really good long-term memory. I'm currently setting it up to start building things for me. So I don't even have to be involved in the building process. So one of the steps that I've done, because ChatGPT and Gemini also have memory about the way I built. So I just asked Gemini and ChatGPT to summarize exactly how I built and how I think about it. And then I converted those memory into skills and I fed that to OpenClaw. So this is how I set up my bot right now. And I haven't tried to build something with it yet. I'm still in the setup process. With BeetleBot, which is the bot that I built that is inspired by OpenClaw, it's a tool that allows me to manage all my free time. So it works exactly similar to OpenClaw, where you can have different cron jobs to set up autonomy and so on. This bot is for me a way to really experiment with how OpenClaw was built by getting my hand dirty on building it myself. So I love learning by doing. So I always build a project on my own and try to use the tool at the same time.
Interesting. So we were talking earlier just about the notion of how people have this misconception that AI will be replacing people, will be replacing jobs. I was just reading this morning how there's going to be no use for code review by people at all. We shouldn't even be doing it now. It was entirely written by somebody that sounds like they've never worked with a good team of engineers before, and they just don't have a lot of love for them, frankly. So I didn't put a lot of stock in it, but it was just interesting that was somebody that's on that level of, I don't need a developer. Now I don't need anybody doing quality assurance, just me, Wild West. I'm just going to go out there and run a gun and kind of get this done. So do you think that something like that is where we're angling toward, reducing the number of developers, reducing the number of staff, or is it actually going to wind up increasing the demand for good senior developers to help keep it in check and monitor it and make sure that it's producing quality output?
I think we definitely go into a world where AI is going to do the entire review process. My job as a developer has completely changed already. It's literally completely different to what I was doing before. I don't write any code now. It's all generated. 99% of my job is reviewing code generated by AI and then sometimes reviewing the review with AI. So a lot of my work involves using AI to throughout the entire process. Now, where the senior developer comes in is that because I have had so much experience coding, and sometimes I can look at the code and notice something and say, oh, this one does not look correct. And then I can dive in and push the AI toward a certain direction. So I feel like the job of a developer is more of a guidance, like a navigator, where I can push AI toward a certain angle to add clarity into an issue or investigate for me. but I don't have to do that manually myself. But the way code review is evolving is getting to the point where it's so good that I think we give it a couple of, maybe like a year or two, where it's going to get to the point where I'll have a lot of confidence with what the AI has reviewed, to the point where might not even need to review it myself. Some of the areas where I still see a lot of weaknesses is when it has to do with something very visual. If you're building a visual feature, you still want a human in the loop that can actually look at the design and like approve it or stuff like that. But when it comes to the backend, generally, there are instances where I have to do a double check, like if there's a database migration, conflict, stuff like that. But generally, I'm really satisfied with what the code review finds. Like right now, for example, like using multiple code review also give you different it's like having different developer. So I get code review from Cursor, code review from Cloud, code review from, I think it's called Greptile, and you're getting different perspective as you're coding. So it's definitely at the level of a developer where it is right now.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of benefit from we're betaing right now, it's called CodeRabbit, but it participates in our PR process just like a developer does, and it has a bunch of notes, and it takes some time to get it kind of configured to where it's providing useful notes as opposed to just a lot of cruft. One of the problems with generative AI is they're really good at generating a lot of content, and if your human has to read that, it's really annoying. So trying to get things to be concise, and also in code, trying to get it to generate concise code is sometimes a challenge. But I think that it's a similar trend to what we see in programming, where someone who was a really smart developer with a great technical understanding can now orchestrate an AI and get a lot of stuff done in a short amount of time. I think that AI is really giving us a lift on our code reviews and kind of helping us do a better job at it, be more thorough and so on. So we do the same thing where we have different AIs kind of critique each other, and then we have a human step in and kind of be the trier of what we're actually going to do.
I have some intuition that where code review is going to go is that we're going to have skills for code review where independent developer can actually teach the AI how to review code like them. That might be like a short-term transition, but I think we might get to this point because even when I review code, I want to get to the point where I don't have to actually go to the code review because I'm always doing similar things, looking at similar areas. And I've been thinking about how do I automate that? How do I fire myself from having to review this code every single time? And then the way I've thought about to address that is by writing skills for the code review. So I have an intuition that we might go toward this direction as well.
If you find yourself in the place where you're using AI in an existing giant code base that wasn't produced by AI, one of the things that's cool to put in your Cloud Doc, or I have like a prep for PR process that I run through where it's literally a different file where it opens it up and it runs through like, these are all things I need to do to get this ready to go. And one of the things in there is just like, look at some other places in the code base and be like, does my code look like that code? And if it doesn't, then I need to I need to refactor my code to match the other code in the code base. So that's a cool tip for anyone basically who's working in an existing code base. Can you speak a little bit more to like using skills and how that works and like what a skill is and how one uses one, and just give people a little bit of color on engaging with those?
Skills is essentially a way to make an ability more redundant. Like you're creating a way for the AI to have the ability to do something in a certain consistency multiple times. For example, you can have a skills to tell AI in the context of code how you like, for example, to format your code. You can have skills that says, for example, when you're using code, use double quote. You can teach AI how you like to do things a specific way. But you can also use skills in a much more complex way where you can actually teach AI how to follow a certain workflow. For example, I've used skills a lot in browsers and with browser agents to follow a very specific workflow when doing tasks. They're just a way to give ability to AI that the AI wouldn't have otherwise by adding that ability inside of its context.
So do these skills require constant feedback? Is it a situation where you're basically like providing it with an initial prompt, see how it does, fix it, tune it, see how it does, fix it, tune it, see how it does? Or is it something that's so concise and so succinct that you can just say, this is the process. I want to do this. I want to go here. I want to generate this email. It needs to be in this particular language and format. And then I want to make sure to log that in my Salesforce or something like that.
I would say a little bit of both because you do need some iteration because sometimes you write the skill for the first time, you use it and you notice little things that you can tweak to improve it. And then you go back to the skill folder and then improve the skills over time. I would say definitely iteration are helpful to make skills better, but it doesn't have to start like that. One tip is that you could go on inside of ChatGPT or Cloud and describe what you want to do and ask it to generate a skill for you for that specific task. And then after the fact, see if you like it and you can just iterate over that.
Have you had a lot of success or have you worked at all with skills that do actually generate like a document, a PDF file, a spreadsheet, some sort of an output that becomes what the product of the work actually is? Or is that something that you need to spend a lot more time in actually coding to get it to do?
I've done it before when I used to work on Skill Adapter. So I actually started tackling the concept of skills like a while back before even cloud-related skills. It's called skilladapter.com if you're curious. And then what I was doing with that, I wanted to find a way to teach your browser how to do things and not to redo the same thing over and over again. So I spent a lot of time figuring out how to prompt it in a certain way that the browser would be intelligent enough, for example, to not redo the same thing over and over again when it's looking at the browser, but also utilizing a little bit of memory.
Gotcha. So last question for me, and then I'll kick it over to Justin if he's got anything else. But just thinking now into the future of developers, actually the physical humans that are going to be interacting with this thing, what is one or two things that you might say to a new developer or one of these new skill builders or whatever that they should be learning now to stay relevant?
Number one thing I always say is get familiar with prompt engineering. This is, I feel like, the skill of the century now. They can literally unlock so many different things. It opens door to so many other things that I would say if you just focus on understanding how to prompt correctly, you've done already like a big chunk of the work. Second, I'll say understand the concept of context engineering. I know the term context engineering sounds complicated, but it's technically always think about what the AI need to know in order to do something, the same way as if you were to teach your employee or your assistant to do something for you, they need to have the right context. If you think about AI that way, you always make sure that he has the right context. You can accomplish a lot of things with that. I think just from those two, to keep it simple, I think that unlock a lot of things for people. Obviously, there's so much you can do now that if you dive into it a little bit more, then the sky is the limit. But also, if you're curious about figuring out how to build application, go on something like V0, write what you want to do, and then the magic's just going to inspire you to do more.
What's the wildest prompt that you've had to put together? I'm not going to say that I'm getting good at it, but I've certainly gotten better at it than when I started. I read about all these different prompts, particularly of interest to me are ones that generate images and the really fluid language that you have to put to actually get the imagery that you're looking for the exact way you want it. And then if you did that exact same thing tomorrow, you're going to get a completely different outcome.
Yeah, it's like using like JSON for generating images or video or things like this. I recently took a book that I wrote when I was 16 and I had it converted into JSON, the entire book, into a storybook so that it can generate a video from that. The most complex way I've used prompt engineering actually is, so I built this tool called Teamboard that is an LLM console, and it also has an MCP. So technically I have Cursor go talk to the console and generate the prompt for the code itself. So I'm not actually the one writing the prompt. It goes straight to the console and it generates the prompt from that. I think that's one of the most advanced way I've written prompt.
Very cool. Justin, what you got, man?
So we got a product idea. You're going to vibe code it to MVP, get it in front of people, start taking payments. So it's a new business idea. You're going to get it started. You want to vibe code it from scratch tomorrow. Where do you start? What are you picking up?
First thing, I've spent a lot of time inside of ChatGPT or cloud, just like really trying to understand what I'm trying to build, where's the value and all that. Once I have an idea, I generate the PRD, go into V0, generate the application as a navigable prototype. And as soon as I see what it looks like, then I can try to figure out how to implement everything else. If it works, I use Stripe for payment. If it works, I use Magic Link for authentication. Start with Upstash for database, just to keep it simple, not overcomplicated. And then from there, I'm already starting from a good base. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. There's a new app that allows you to build application inside of macOS and soon inside of Windows directly. I think this is going to be a really big unlock for people.
Yeah, I can see that.
Is there anything you're excited about in the last recent week with like agentic AI?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. As our longtime listeners know, Justin and I have day jobs, and this is not it, unfortunately. And in our day jobs, we run a consultancy, basically. And so it's been really interesting to see it, AI gaining ground in the marketplace. And so, one of the things that in a general sense I'm excited about is creating some potential service offerings centered around AI, not necessarily here's your application and we generated it fully from AI, but rather how we can help people leverage AI by way of creating these skills or creating prompts or creating some of these agents to help them with the repetitive nature of some of the stuff that they do, particularly back office stuff, because we saw a lot of those problems. That's something I'm kind of excited about. And then I guess from just the personal interaction aspect, I've been out of the coding game for a long time. I'll really date myself now, but my last full-time programming job, I worked on an IBM AS400 mainframe writing in RPG-4.
Wow.
I have done other types of programming and programming languages since then, but that was the last full-time paying gig as a programmer I did. I am glad to see it coming back around where I don't necessarily have to know all the ins and outs of programming languages and I can actually get some stuff done again.
What are any of those things, Aaron?
Oh my gosh.
You said a lot of things that lexically parse to being nouns, but I don't know what any of the nouns were.
Wow. Thanks, man.
I'm a young whippersnapper.
Nope. I worked for an electrical cooperative, and that's what ran their entire back office system, invoicing, meter controls. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And it was a great experience, and I loved the job. But wow, I was not sad to see that die a painful death.
Did you get a chance to try a Perplexity computer?
Oh, no, I haven't yet. I mean, I've been reading about it and I see it and I like some of the aspects of it. You start to get these aggregators in place. And I suspect that that's going to become kind of the next wave is people being able to couple these different types of AI agents together to get a suite of services rather than just, well, I'm going to pick this one to do my large language modeling. I'm going to pick this one to be for my design. People are going to start bundling those things together. I see that coming. And I think that's going to be very cool.
I feel like Manus was the first one to kind of do this kind of agentic things. And then down the road now, the Claw is doing really well. Now Perplexity is doing that. That's really cool.
I think I'm excited about getting some experience building these agentic systems and creating agents for other people. I'm specifically interested in security and privacy. And not everybody on Earth wants to send all of their data to Anthropic and OpenAI. So like, for instance, I'm not a Mac user, I'm a Linux user, so we don't have WhisperFlow, but there's a great GitHub project called OpenWhisper, and you can download your own model. So I have all on computer dictation, so I can talk into my microphone and have my local model do all my dictation without shipping all of my data off to some overlord in the cloud. And I think for people who have sensitive data, there's NDA and other disclosure use cases where you may not be able to use generative AI where you're shipping things into the cloud. So I'm really excited about seeing kind of the open source piece of this and people's self-hosted AIs and growing models for specific purposes, that ecosystem growing. I mean, Hugging Face is bananas. There's just billions of models on there, it seems like. And I really like the idea of being able to craft these kind of bespoke, purpose-built agentic AI systems that are also using models that are more aligned towards data security and privacy.
There's a open code too that is really exciting. Ollama, that's pretty exciting as well.
Yes, absolutely. I'm on my list of beta that I'm going to be doing it this week. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of day job work, so I've been using Claude a lot because I haven't had time to play around with it. But yeah, ChatGPT of all people recommended that to me, or of all LLMs. So yeah, thank you for mentioning it. It's good you've enjoyed working with it.
Yes, yeah, Ollama is great. Actually, recently I've been trying to use Ollama with, are you familiar with Warp? It's like a terminal that you can use on your machine that has access to AI. Usually you have to pay for it, but then I was like, there must be a way to use it with Ollama. So I've been trying to set this up together recently. But yeah, I've used it. It's very popular.
Yeah, super cool. I'm excited to get into it. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of Cloud Code with Opus 4.6, which is very impressive, but definitely interested for a whole bunch of reasons to start doing some of that, running those models locally and not shipping off so much data to people across the internet who we have imbalanced powered relationships with.
What I love to see is more cloud solutions that are free that allow me to use open weight model too. I think even if it's not as private, at least using it for free will unlock a lot of things for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Richardson, thanks so much for the fun of getting to kind of dive into some of this real world AI stuff and just kind of talk geek about AI for a minute. So I really appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was a nice chat.
Yeah. How can people reach you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Best way is on Twitter at Richardson DX, on my website, richdackam.com. And if you're curious about what I'm building, I build everything at nshipyard.com. It's like my little AI lab. It's like a one-person lab where I build every single apps.
Very fun. Well, special thanks, as always, to our listeners. If you like what you're hearing, have ideas for the show, or just want to tell us what's on your mind, hit that like button, throw a review our way, subscribe if you are so inclined, and Justin will love you for it.
Oh, leave me a voicemail or a comments. We have a way for that. Then I'll really love you. I'll feature you on the show. I'll even talk to you.
There we go.
At least until we figure out a way to make AI generate these shows for us, Aaron.
It's coming. It will take a long time. I mean, just to generate the amazing quality of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you've got like some facial quality stuff going on, and then we're going to have an entire skill for dad jokes for me. So it'll be good.
Yep. Mine will have to be seasonal. Beard, no beard, various degrees of beard. Yeah. Awesome.
Various degrees of beard sounds like an indie band.
Let me write it down real quick. That could be my next musical.
It's a kind of band. It's kind of rock and roll. There's like an electric guitar, but for some reason there's also an accordion on stage. And you're like, what's going on here?
Fantastic. I hear the prompt writing itself even.
I can already feel myself starting to type that we can drop the tail end of this podcast into my editing chat. Anyway.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll see everybody next time on SaaS That App. Thanks for cruising along with us on SaaS That App. We hope you grabbed some insights that were inspiring, actionable, or at least entertaining.
If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review.
Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep those apps sassy.